Please welcome to the stage Governor Josh Stein. Appreciate it. Well, how was the fair?
Like any good North Carolinian, I spent a couple hours at the fair today. Bacon wrapped scallop, fried tuna bites, fried Oreo, fried Reese's Cup, which, by the way, is health food, an apple. It was good.
I was telling the governor we're getting him right when his sugar high is going to kick in, and so if anything goes down, we'll blame it on the Reese's.
I did the water balloon contest, and my wife beat me. She was very pleased. She got a big cow.
That's funny. Well, we're here talking about advanced manufacturing and economic development here in North Carolina. I don't know if you know this, Governor, but the Boston Globe has been kind of obsessed with North Carolina recently. They've been writing a lot of articles, a lot of editorials about how North Carolina keeps beating Boston and Massachusetts for jobs, especially biotech. And I think they even wrote, if we're going to be competitive, we have to figure out a way to become as cheap as North Carolina, have as good talent for the cost of living they have, and everything else. And I guess I was wondering, when you sort of talk to these companies that are looking at the Bostons of the world, the Austins, the Atlantas of the world, what is it about North Carolina that they're finding attractive right now?
North Carolina really has a secret sauce in that it has the total package. It has the talent. It always starts with people. If we didn't have the people, they wouldn't come, couldn't come. And what we have, which is particularly attractive to, say, a biotech player, is we have the full array of talent. We have the PhDs in chemistry and biology. We have the R1 research universities that are cutting edge medical science. But then we also have the talent to produce whatever it is, whatever drug or process they're trying to create. And so you add the talent to the quality of life. Just look outside. We've got the best state fair in America. We feel like we have traffic, but compared to other places in the world, we don't have traffic, which doesn't mean it can't get worse, and we definitely need to stay ahead of it. We have this incredible quality of life. So it's really, and part of that is affordability. Again, we're experiencing rising housing prices, which is painful for a lot of our constituents, but compared to a Boston, compared to a San Francisco, compared to a San Diego, some of the, and even in Austin, our big competitors when it comes to biotech, we are often substantially less expensive place to live. And then it just sort of starts to snowball. I mean, we've had 3 major life sciences announcements in Holly Springs. Who would have ever predicted 20 years ago that Holly Springs would be a biotech capital of the world? I mean, we're talking Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly, Fujifilm Biotech. So there's just incredible things happening, and it really starts to build on itself. And I happened to be in Boston when that editorial was written in the Boston Globe, and I was walking around with my chest out real big.
Yeah, there's obviously we'll talk about a lot of industries here, but just to zoom in on the biotech, I was wondering, one thing that really stands out to me when we get these biotech jobs is they do run the gamut from whether it's a PhD holding position down to entry-level, manufacturing, where you would get a certificate somewhere at a community college. Right. I was wondering, what do you think a jobs announcement that has that range of skills does for a community?
It's exactly what we want. Is we want to be able to have attractive places of employment for people with the array of skills. We have some of the best universities in the country, which means in the world here in the Triangle. So there's talent that's being produced, but the majority of North Carolinians don't have a college degree, a 4-year college degree. And a person shouldn't have to have a bachelor's of art or bachelor of science in order to get a good paying job that supports a family. And so those are the kinds of industrial recruitments that really make me excited, because I know that Wake Tech has tremendous biotech training programs. Durham Tech has tremendous biotech training programs. And so you can be a high school graduate and decide, I want to pursue a career in biotech, go through a certificate program, and sometimes it's a paid internship where you're an actual apprentice, and they will pay you to go to school and pay you to work. And then you can have, a $70,000, $80,000 a year job, which is enough to support a family. And that's what I want, is I want as many people to have that steady paycheck that enables them to provide for their family in the way that they want, and that gives them, a professional path. It's not just a job, but it's the start of a career. And that's something that we're having a lot of success in North Carolina offering our people, and I want it spread to every corner of the state.
You became governor in January of this year. There's been a lot of economic uncertainty in that amount of time, whether it's tariffs or, I think people have been calling a recession now for 5 years, ever since the pandemic happened. But I guess I was wondering, from a policy standpoint, what do you worry about as governor that might slow the state's momentum when it comes to attracting that biotech job in Holly Springs or an investment from GE?
The more immediate concerns are what you just alluded to, that there is fear of recession. And if you look at investment, a lot of companies just have not invested. And if you look outside of AI, like 90% of investment in companies in the last year have been in AI. So you take that out of the economy and you're beginning to worry, like, what's underneath it? What else is there? So the mercurial nature of the president's tariff policy is of great concern. Companies, they crave certainty and stability more than anything else, and they want to know what are the rules. And if the rules are one, and they don't really like the rules, but they know what they are, they can then plan around them. But when the rules change on a weekly or monthly basis, they're hamstrung and they cannot make big investment decisions. So that is an immediate term concern for me. Over the long term, I have fears that the General Assembly has created a fiscal cliff that's going to create real long-term challenges for our ability to make the key investments in what makes North Carolina great, which means excellent public schools, great community colleges, an incredible university system, infrastructure, roads and railroads, healthcare, public safety, things that we need as sort of baseline critical services that if you don't have, you won't get investment. And the way they've got the tax code pre-programmed to make cuts, we're looking at like a $2 billion shortfall over the baseline that we have today, which isn't enough to fund critical government services as it is. So I think that is a long-term risk, is that the legislature, through its fiscal imprudence, is going to really kill the goose that lays the golden egg.
Well, to that point, obviously we have a government shutdown in D.C., but here in North Carolina, we have not signed a budget for this year. And a lot of that is sort of a discussion between the House and the Senate over how do we pay for that fiscal cliff, right? I guess I'm wondering, from where you sit, does maybe a lack of stability on a budget, do you think companies read anything into that?
I think that they want to know that you have a sound fiscal base. And currently, North Carolina has, but because we have good things today, and we've got good things. We were #1 state for business in 2025. That's the third time in the last 4 years. And the one time we didn't win, we were close second to Virginia, and I forget who I was with, but they were complaining about the formula changes, and we really should have been won 4 years in a row. But the point being is that there are a lot of things going well here, but you just cannot rest on your laurels in this game. Everybody wants what we want. Massachusetts wants what we want. Virginia wants what we want. Other states want what we've got here in North Carolina. We've got to stay on our toes. We've got to stay hungry. We've got to be fiscally prudent. We have to make critical, smart investments to stay on that cutting edge.
One thing that I think has been an interesting trend since the pandemic is that obviously North Carolina was first in flight, but there have been, certainly since the pandemic, a number of new aviation jobs announced here in the state, whether that's Boom Supersonic, promising around 2,000 jobs in the future here in Greensboro. Jet Zero was, I think, the largest one in state history at 14,000 jobs, but GE is investing heavily across the state. Pratt & Whitney is expanding out west in Asheville. Right. I guess I was wondering, what do you think it is about that industry that seems to be having so much momentum in the state, and how do we go about making sure we can fill those tens of thousands of jobs that are coming in?
Fantastic question. I would say the two sectors which seem to be having the most energy when it comes to recruiting businesses here, actually three, I would say. Biotech, which we've already addressed, aerospace, and there have been a series of financial services announcements in Charlotte in recent weeks, which are all very encouraging. And then we have a lot of advanced manufacturing on a much smaller scale throughout rural North Carolina. Just as an aside, we had 4 announcements last week. 2 of them were in Lenoir, 1 was in Greene County, and 1 was in Ashe County, which, I mean, that's gold in those communities to have good paying jobs in those communities. It's very exciting. But aerospace, we have some 400 aerospace companies in North Carolina, produces about $88 billion in economic activity every year. And we've been doing parts of airplanes for a long time. In Durham, the GE aerospace engines, 2 out of every 3 commercial planes uses a GE engine. Then we have GE Aerospace has a facility in Asheville that does the plating on the cylinders. I am clearly an engineer. That is used to compress the air and experiences an incredible heat. And if it melts metal, so they have to have this coating to keep it from melting. Otherwise, the propulsion doesn't work. Well, it turns out Pratt & Whitney has the same plant making the same piece for its engines in Asheville as well. Who would have thought Asheville was sort of a cutting-edge aerospace city, but it truly is. So when we have Jet Zero and we have Boom Supersonic coming, it's incredibly exciting because they are making a bet on North Carolina not only being the first in flight or the current of flight, but actually the future of flight. They see us as having the ability to produce the workforce. So it all comes back to the workforce. I was just in Greensboro on Wednesday last week, Guilford Tech, and again, you'll hear a theme in all my comments that has to do with the community college system. Guilford Tech is just breaking ground on their aerospace educational facility. It's this big, massive building, and that's phase 1. They're having phase 2 in the drawing plans. And so they know that they've got this incredible opportunity with thousands of really good paying advanced manufacturing jobs that if these companies succeed, you know, they're both cutting edge. They're industry changing ideas that they could grow to be even more bigger than what they hope that they will be. So they are getting ahead of the curve by making sure that workforce can learn the skills that they need so that they're ready to go. Same thing with Randolph Community College and Guilford Tech when it comes to Toyota. Every EV battery that's going to go into a Toyota car manufactured at whatever facility around the country is going to be made in Greensboro. And we're talking about 5,000-6,000 jobs there. Something like $16 billion in investment. I mean, it's just incredibly exciting what's happening. And like I said, we've just got to keep our eye on the prize, do not lose our focus, and keep building toward a better future.
I wanted to go back to your comment about, you know, how do we balance, you know, making sure like Raleigh and Charlotte are still continuing to build momentum, but also not to ignore Eastern North Carolina, you know, a place like Randolph County or something like that. And it did seem like during the pandemic, there was a lot of momentum in the clean energy space, especially with the use of incentives, you know, whether they're you know, Toyota potentially using those or a Wolfspeed using those in Siler City. But there are projects like Natron that seem like they won't be going anymore because of a loss of federal subsidies. And I was wondering, you know, how do you think that momentum on clean energy projects in rural North Carolina is slowing, or is there a way to sort of recover some of these loss of momentum?
It's tough. I mean, I cannot sugarcoat it. What the Trump administration and Congress did in that H.R. 1 to the clean energy sector was devastating. I mean, they took the rugs out from underneath their feet, and it wasn't like we're going to change the policy in 5 years and let's have a transition period. It was an immediate cessation of those tax credits, and on some things they actually wanted to raise taxes on clean energy in order to subsidize coal. I mean, it was just such an ideologically driven exercise. We had one company lay off 500 people in a solar installation company out of Asheville. And so there's going to be real pain, and I fear some retrenchment when it comes to clean energy. The legislature passed a bill here that took the pressure off of Duke Energy to really be aggressive on trying to promote renewable sources of energy. And Duke's IRP, Integrated Resource Plan, that they just submitted a couple weeks ago to the Public Utilities Commission, it reduced solar, it eliminated wind, and it substantially increased natural gas and restarted coal. I mean, it was just absolutely the opposite of what is the right trajectory for the future. So policy matters. It matters who we elect. It matters who we elect in Raleigh. It matters who we elect in Washington.
Going back to Duke Energy, I think that's really been a ground-shaking bill and how it's changed the energy mix in North Carolina going forward. And, there's been a lot of discussion, about they're doing this to keep costs lower for businesses, for consumers. And there's a lot of pressure on the space because a data center is being built. But I'm curious to know, how do you sort of view, from a policy standpoint, how do we make sure we have a cleaner energy future while balancing some of those costs over the long run?
Well, so when that bill came out, there were two independent studies done separately from one another, one at NC State and one at Duke. They independently concluded that this bill that the legislature passed is going to cost ratepayers $23 billion over the next 25 years because it's locking the state into a natural gas and coal-based future. Well, the challenge with natural gas isn't necessarily the building of the plants, it's the fueling of the plants. Whereas when you have a solar farm or a wind farm, the fuel is free. It's inconsistent. That's why you have battery storage. That's why you come up with ways to mitigate against the uncertainty of the production. But you can essentially know what you're going to get out of solar, what you're going to get out of wind, and in many ways they actually serve to mitigate one another. But with natural gas, the price volatility of natural gas is incredible. And that's why Duke scientists and NC State scientists independently said this bill is going to cost us a great deal of money because we can't know exactly what natural gas is going to cost us in the future. And so if you look at the bill that they passed in Washington, the H.R. 1, that bill is going to dramatically increase the cost on every consumer of energy, electricity, because it's taking all the solar off the table. And solar is the cheapest form of power. And basically, we need more electrons. So I understand we may need more natural gas than what we have today. The question isn't, do we need more natural gas? The question is do we bet entirely on natural gas and take solar and wind off the table? When solar and wind are the cheapest form of electron that you can buy on a marginal basis. So we need all the production we possibly can get, and they are taking it off the table, which is immensely frustrating.
I know we've already talked a lot about the community college system, and we'll be talking more about it shortly. But one element of workforce development that I think is maybe unremarked upon a lot in North Carolina is, we have one of the largest military populations in the country. People are coming in and out of Fort Bragg, out of Camp Lejeune all the time. And, I have talked with many companies who, love to hire former military members. I was wondering, do you think the state is doing enough to maybe help those military members coming out of service and, staying in North Carolina when their service is over?
We aspire to be the best state in the country for service members, veterans, and their families. And we have work to go to get there. I think objectively we're not there, and we could do better. And so I was down at Fayetteville Tech earlier this year, meeting with a group of folks who were family members of service members, trying to make sure they had all the help they could get because their loved ones get deployed, they're home alone, they need to get a good job. So it was having to do with training at Fayetteville Tech for the family members. I was just with GE Aerospace Foundation folks earlier today, and they've announced a $500,000 initiative with Fayetteville Tech through, it's called Something Make America. Heroes Make America. It's not Make America Great, I promise. Heroes Make America. And it focuses on that population we've just discussed and to make sure that they have the skills they need. And they focus on aerospace. And when you do the program, you come out with the certification that GE Aerospace needs, but it's also what Pratt & Whitney needs. And it's what Boom Supersonic and Jet Zero will need. And so it's about helping people make that transition. Whenever there's a transition in life, when you go from service to civilian life, it can be challenging. And what we have to do as a state is make every barrier that exists as low and easy to overcome as possible.
Well, I think we've run out of time. We could talk about this for a lot longer, but I really appreciate your time, Governor, and we'll let you get back to your day after. You've been all over the place, sir. Charlotte, State Fair, Raleigh. Wow, I'm sure Greenville tomorrow. Who knows?
It's a good day.
Yeah. Thank you so
Zachery,
much.
Thank you.